Hello and welcome to my Rust guide on electrical circuits with additional tips and tricks mixed within. I wanted to start out by saying that I appreciate there are a number of videos out there covering Rust electrics, but some are difficult to follow and I don't fully explain why the circuit works the way it does. I'm hoping to be able to not just demonstrate how to set up an electric circuit, but also increase your knowledge of electricity and Rust so that you can apply creativity in developing your own circuits. With that said, let's crack on, and I will add a timestamp in the description so you can easily skip to the parts you're most interested in. So to begin, solar panels. Basically, you need to face these north. Now, the reason behind that is that Rust works on a system where every wipe starts in May, and basically on a 7-day wipe, north is the optimum place to fixate your solar panels to. Now, it does change, and there are guides out there which explain absolutely the most optimum direction for solar panels in any Rust time, but I'll link that in the description and I won't bother repeating what another YouTuber has done very well. The YouTuber in question is Austin Claylia Games, and as I say, I'll give a link in the description as to why north is the optimum facing direction for solar panels in Rust on a 7-day wipe. Now, I could have done this very neatly, I haven't bothered, but yeah. So, just as an FYI, you can change the colour of your wire by holding down R. I normally just use grey. There are lots of people that use different colour wires for different things, but if you know how your electrical circuits work, I normally just make it neat and tidy and just use the same colour. So, you put solar panels or any other power generating item into a combined power root combiner. One thing to note is that with the previous update, where you can now branch power off of power lines, those will not be able to be connected to root combiners, so you have to connect those directly into a battery. They cap at 18, I believe, when the grid is running, and when the grid's not running you can get 12. That's not a huge amount of power, but it'll probably suffice for a small battery at the very beginning of a wipe. You can only find those near roads, again, so it's all dependent on where you've built your base. In this instance, I've got 2 solar panels going into a root combiner following into a large battery. With that out the way, we'll do this one first. The first circuit I'll show you is door closing. Now, there's multiple ways of doing this. However, I find that the most sensible way is a circuit that works on its own. So you can obviously have your door automatically close on a timer if you've left it open, but it requires more power than what a button can provide. So, basically, you're going to combine a button from the power out into the power in on a door controller, and then you put the pass-through into the close. So now, let's say you've left your door open. You've got the door camper has come in. They're sitting here with a double barrel waiting for you to open that. You don't want to go deep. You also don't want to go to be able to escape if they do go deep. So what you can do is you can set this up. A button provides its own power, and therefore you need no solar panels, no battery. You can actually just put a button straight into a door controller. It provides 1 power and the door closes. So let's just open that again. If I press that, the door closes. Simple as that, very easy. If your door's left open accidentally and someone gets inside, you can trap them. Then you can leave them there until they F1 kill. Now, another thing, this wire doesn't look very good. So what you can do is you can fix that. So if you hold down shift, you can get straight lines, but if you then use the middle mouse button, you can rewire your your wire so that it has flex in it. So now I can rewire it around the door and put it through here, put it into there, and now when you open it, there's no wire in the way because I've wired it onto the hinge side, gone around the door frame and then through. But you've also got like this extra flex in your wire just having due to shift and scroll in the middle mouse wheel. So that's circuit number 1. That's a very useful, very easy one to set up and doesn't require any power from solar or wind or anything. You don't need a battery. So, auto smelters. Now, a lot of people know how to do these. I find that a really nice way of doing them is having them on their own circuit. So, if I use a small battery, a medium battery, and I put that in here, I have already set up 2 solar panels on the roof and they're facing north. I just bring the power in and put that into our battery. Now, we have 15 electric furnaces. Now you can do this with as many electric furnaces as you like. I find 15 is very good. It obviously costs a lot of HQM, and so you're going to just be building this over time. But ultimately, so that won't let me build it because I have this in the way at the moment. So let me just rebuild that. And then we want a medium battery. That was a misclick. There's a Shift R in there which just deleted the foundation beneath everything. But hey ho. So as I say, you'll be building this over time, but you need to make sure, as we just found out, that the door frame, because you'll be hiding this behind garage doors eventually, is placed last. And then you can put one in there as well. More electric furnaces. So we got 4, 7, 14 at the moment. This is number 15. Place it here. No. So 15 will work on a medium battery circuit. So a medium battery can put out 50 in terms of its max output capacity. If you want the 16th, because there is room for a 16th at the back there, you're going to have to run this off a large battery, and it's not all going to fit inside one single 1x1 square. With that said, let's add our storage adapters. Right, so there's no real right or wrong way to wire these up. A lot of people will either use splitters, or the alternative is to using electrical branches. So with 15, you're going to want 5 splitters, And before any of this, you're going to want to put in a switch. So you can make this as neat as possible. I'm just going to lay it out so it's easy to follow. But basically, we're going to put our power from the battery into a electrical branch, and that will feed into the power in. And we're going to want to take the branch out on that to be 4, the power out into another electrical branch, and then we're going to want to add more splitters per, branches per splitter. So depending on how quickly you're setting this up, you might start with 3. So you'd say you got 9 because it's 3 power per electric furnace. Put the power into there, and then this one here is 9. So the branch out goes into there, the power out goes into there. And then as you increase, when you get another 3, you can go 18. And then that has power out into 9, the branch goes into there, and each one of these is going to give us 3 off. So let's wire these up very fast. But before we do that, what we actually want to do is put this branch out into the power out of the switch. And the reason for that is this circuit is actually going to be able to turn itself on and off depending on whether or not it's got ore to cook. And so that'll all be explained later, but first of all, let's wire all this up. Trying to do it as neat as possible whilst also not taking up far too much of your time whilst you watch this. Tell you what, let's just leave it like that. I've shown you the layout, we'll just use 6 for this. Ultimately, you can turn it on and off manually, but what we really want to do is add in this. So the first time we had 4 here. Power in, pass through into the power in of our other conveyor. So basically, let's say that this is our ore box, right? So we want to put an adapter on that, and we want to wire or pipe the industrial out into the industrial input of the first conveyor. That can then follow through into this, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to wire pipe all of these together, and then come down. You can start here. Now, even though I didn't wire in these electric furnaces, most of them, this will still work. And then we want to pipe this back into there. And now you have a full circuit. Now, what a lot of people will do is they'll just switch these on, the ore goes in, the cooked stuff comes out, and it all goes back in the box. But what you'll find is they won't use a switch. These will be permanently running and just be wasting electricity. So the good thing about this is, because this circuit uses close to 50 max output once it's fully operational, we can run this off of 1 solar panel or 2 solar panels. We don't actually need to be producing 50 power to sustain it, because it'll turn itself off, it'll recharge, and it can just keep operating on a recharge cycle. So if I put some ore in here, I think I need to do that for here. So some ore, get some sulfur, get some that, and metal ore here. So let's chuck all that in there. Now, it's already filtering itself through. It's not got any cap on that. It's just going to keep increasing. So the best way of doing this is to actually have it capped. So if I just remove all that very fast. Because what you're looking for is you want to ensure that your furnaces are fed constantly so that the switch system can work. So let's type in, we want to put in metal ore, we want 8 there, 2 there, delete that. Sulfur is actually, that's the 8, metal ore is the 4, apologies for that. So that now means that every furnace is going to be given, it'll be 8 sulfur, 2 HQM and 4 metal. Obviously I've got 3 in there, it hasn't taken the metal ore yet, it's just using the HQM and the sulfur. So on the output we want to just take frags. This you can actually just not specify, you could just take what you want from it, but I like to specify it regardless. Good practice. This doesn't actually need any max buffers or mins, you could just specify this as is. So you turn that one on, they're not cooking yet, and that's because we haven't flipped the switch. But this is our industrial conveyor that feeds the furnaces. Now industrial conveyors work by pushing and pulling resources around. So this will have a filter fail and a filter pass. Now because this is the one that's taking the resources and putting them into the electric furnaces, we want to use the filter pass. And that basically means that when it senses that resources are traveling through the conveyor, it triggers with a pass-through of 1 power. Now we can use that to switch on our switch. And then on the filter fail, so when it's not pulling any more through, we can feed that into an AND switch. And likewise with the filter fail on the one that's taking the metal frags and the cooked resources out of the electric furnaces, we take the filter fail on that one and also put that into an AND switch, and then we use that to switch off our system. Now because these have already been filled, we can just take that out, put that back in there, and what you'll find is because it's just charged it, it sensed that it's not turning it off because it's both pushing and pulling, which is why all the lights have gone off on our AND switch. And as soon as this is finished doing, so if I just remove I'll remove all that, okay, so all it's going to do is very quickly cook our HQM, and as soon as that's finished, the AND switch is going to trigger and the switch is going to go off, so our battery is going to keep charging. And as I say, I haven't wired all this up, so we've only got an active usage of 11, and so if I had all 15 of these running, we could in theory burn through our electricity in the battery quite quickly. So when we're not cooking, we don't want the electric furnaces on, which is why we set up a system like this. Now I used to do this in a way where basically I just used the filter fail and pushed it straight into the turn off, and that would come from this one here. But I was running into a situation where it wasn't always operating because it was pulling and pushing at a slower rate, which is now why I'm using the AND switch and I'm not having any issues whatsoever. This is the best way of doing it, and it always works. So that's cooked, and just to give you another demonstration, I put that in, it'll turn on, it'll cook it very quick since it's only 20 metal and there's 6 furnaces running. And as soon as that's cooked, it'll turn off again. Now you can just run every single one of these off of an electrical branch with 3 power. I think it's neater to use the splitters, but it doesn't really matter, subject to your switch coming before all the power outputs to the furnaces. So that is the auto smelter with a auto on and off to conserve power. Now, the charcoal farm in later in the wipe, you're going to need lots of charcoal. So normal furnaces, let's get a few of those going. There is ways to place 9 furnaces in a 1x1, but normally you have to build the walls for at last. And quite frankly, it's very time consuming. So I can't be bothered to show you that. But there are lots of videos out there which will demonstrate how it's done. So with this, you require an adapter on top of all of your furnaces. You get a box for wood and a box for charcoal. Just to make this fast, just going to drop these down here. You're going to want to put a storage adapter on either one of those. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pipe from, let's say the wood box is the closest one. You're going to want to pipe this into every single one of your furnaces. And I forgot to add conveyor beforehand and a conveyor afterwards. So just get those couple of conveyors, just put those there. Again, you can do this as neat as you like, but ultimately it doesn't really make too much difference as long as it works. So the output on this one is actually going to go to there, out on there, into the input. So to give you another tip, what you can do, if you've started a circuit and you don't like where it's gone, you can actually right click to leave that join, and let's say you did all this. So if I right click, it keeps all that. I can right click to undo every single one as it was created, and if I wanted to do it this side, I right click and it reverses it. So that's always useful. You can do that with wires as well. It just means that, especially like, okay, let's say I want to add in another root combiner here. Getting a bit sidetracked at the moment, but I don't want to go up to the roof, so I want to add a generator onto this. Okay, so I can take the power out from that large rechargeable battery. I can put that there. I can then put that into there, and then I can add a generator into this circuit, and we take the power out from that and plug it in here. So now we've got a small generator, 2 solar panels, and that's feeding this large battery. But okay, now you want to take one of your large solar panels and you don't want it connected to this battery anymore. You can get, let's say I get a small battery, you take that, place it down there, and now I will want one of these large solar panels feeding that. So instead of going up onto the roof again to wire that all up, I can just right click, take it off of there, connect it up, and I don't have to go upstairs. And it's so much easier. Small batteries can be placed on lots of things. So I can put them on boxes, you can place them on the TC, you can there, you can place them, you can just place them on things. They're really useful, but they only have an output of 15. So going back to our circuit over here, so I said the wood box was the closest one. I fed that from here, so we'd put wood in there. Normally I use as a max of 10, and charcoal we'll take from here. Now we want to feed our circuit here, Now this only requires 2 for the electrical branches, but what we are going to want to do is have a timer, and because I've used this system, we're going to want an igniter or 2, probably 2 I think, given how far apart these are spaced. And we'll take ourselves a splitter as well, because we're using 2 as igniters. So let's place that there. Our igniters will place 1 there and 1 there. Now those can be fed the splitter, so the power in on that, power out here. Now igniters require 2 power. You can check the power usage of an item by clicking here, and it says it in the information on the side. Now we want to feed our power in from a timer. So put the timer there. The timer, hold down E, you can configure, and you can set that to being 1. Its default is 10. 10 is going to be too long. Igniters have a health, and the longer they run, the more they burn out. So to avoid that, we're going to use a timer on 1 second. So the power in on our timer can actually be fed through from here. We just need a power in. So what we'll actually do is we'll change this to add 4, so we want 6. In fact, what we'll do is make that 7. The reason being is because we're going to want to pull a pass-through power on one of our filters. So on a filter pass on the wood, we want to take that and use that as our toggle. Then we're still getting 5 power here. We'll take that, pull this across. We're actually going to get 4, but it's saying 5 because we haven't used the filter pass yet. So this timer is going to output 4 when our filter pass on the wood clocks. So let me just grab some wood. If I just grab a stack of 1,000, put that 200 in here, and then what we'll do is we'll turn on the charcoal. Obviously no charcoal is going to be coming out because we haven't burned anything yet. Turn this on, it's going to start putting 10 wood into every single one of these furnaces. And then as soon as the filter pass pushes through a power, it's going to trigger the toggle on our timer switch, which then pushes through 4 power into our splitter, and that then gives 2 power to this igniter and 2 power to that igniter, and every single furnace within the system will ignite because it's got wood passed through to it. Each one of these will have a maximum of 10 at any one time, and it'll keep restocking itself from our wood box. Now I haven't put too much in there, so if I do that, recharge it, it'll do that, and that time the igniter did start again, but it won't always do that. It was just because we'd actually run out of wood that time. So all of these are going to be burning all the wood in here, and you're going to be getting charcoal back out here. Now you don't always want to be burning every single bit of wood you've got. So what you can do is you can actually change your item filters, and you can say that you want, say, a minimum of, let's call it 600 wood. Okay, have we got 600? No, we haven't. So let's make it 500 and beat this. So when that runs down, what it's going to do is it's going to stop sending wood when we've got 500 left in here, because it determined that on the filter there. So it's stopped at 500. It's not going to put any more in the furnaces. They're going to burn what they're burning, and then all the furnaces is going to go out again like that. And now let's say I wanted to keep 400 wood instead, so I can change that. It's then going to send wood back into the furnaces, and it's going to stop at 400 instead. Normally I'd keep about 10,000 wood. You never know when you want to repair your base, or I just think 10,000 is a really good number to have. Some people might want 2,000, 4,000. It depends on the size of your base, the size of your team. But wood is useful, so it's always good to keep some, and you don't want to burn it all. So that's a charcoal farm. You can make it as big or as small as you like. The bigger the better, the faster you can get charcoal, and you're going to need that later in your wipes. Now, smart lighting systems. So these are very good. A lot of people will operate these off of when their solar panels are receiving sun, and their lights can come off when they're shaded. The only bad part about that, in my opinion, is that shade is determined by physical features like rocks, trees, buildings. It's just, I think, is a poor way of managing a lighting system in game. So what I do is I use the clock, which you can build at a tier 2 workbench, and a memory cell. And let's grab some lights. So I like the fluorescent lights. You can use whatever lights you like. These ones are part of a DLC, but ultimately you can use whatever. So we're going to have a clock there. We're going to put a memory cell next to it. We need to branch off some power. So if I take the power out here, put that into there, we want 2 branched off into our clock. Now it only needs 1 to run, and that's going to display our time. However, if you go into the alarm clock settings, I like to do 9 AM and I like to do 1930, so that's 7:30. Then this button here, you can click that to mute the alarm so it doesn't make any noise. Now every time one of these triggers, it's going to push a power through this output, and we use that to toggle our memory cell. Now the power in on the memory cell, we need to branch off of here. So what we're going to say, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights, and so we only need 5 power to run this system. So we're going to take 5 power and put that into the bottom of our electrical branch. Now what we can do, given the time is 1 o'clock, we'll take, and we don't want the lights on at 1 o'clock, and I don't think the time's actually going to move just due to the system we're on. This is a creative server, but I can explain it in a roundabout way. So 1 o'clock, we don't want power, so we take the inverted part, which doesn't have any power running through it. We feed those into the lighting system. Now, as the time goes, what's going to happen is 1930 is going to come around, it's going to toggle our memory cell, and then that 5 power is going to go into our output there. So just to reenact it, I'll move it across. The lights come on at 1930. I haven't linked up one of these. And then at 9 o'clock in the morning, this will toggle again, and it will flick back to there, and the lights go off. As I say, I'm on a creative server, and the time's locked, but that's ultimately how it works. The alarm clock toggles the memory cell, and that flicks which output that your power is coming from. So if you want to add more lights to this, you just change how much power you're branching off here into the bottom input of the memory cell. That's a very simple circuit, doesn't rely on solar, and you can see the time in game. It's always useful to have a clock in your base, so you might as well use it to run your lighting system. So with that, let's move across to the other side. You can see I've set up a little compound here. This is just going to be a little tip. So always have your gates going inwards, and the reason for that is because normally in default placing it wants you to place your gate going out Now that's all well and good, except until you realise that up there is a shooting floor. So, you place your gate, and you press R twice, which flicks it round, and now your gate comes in. It's always a good idea to also create an airlock. So, to do that, you just place a high external wall in here. You can then close the gate, and you're in, and then you open the gate, and anybody that's followed you in can't get through. So, that's explained. Hopefully that made sense. And let's go in. So, this is our small compound. I've got a drop box there. I've got a drop box there. These are called buffer boxes. But just before we come onto that, let me just continue with my explanation of our gate. This is really rough building. This is not how I'd build it in a real game. I'm just doing it very quickly to demonstrate the shooting element of the gate. So if you had that facing the other way, it's just you can't use it. So always have it so the gates go inwards. Now, what we're going to set up here is a auto sorter. Now, it's only going to be a partial one. I haven't set it up for every single type of resource in the game. You can make it as big as small as you want. So, ultimately, normally what you're going to end up having is an airlock. Just glitch through the wall. That was weird. So normally you're going to have an airlock and you won't have a compound. So you're going to want to come in, and you're not going to want to run all the way through your base depending on how big it is. So you want a drop box. Now, you're going to want to get a conveyor, and you're going to want to get some adapters, and each one of these boxes you can place multiple places for your conveyors. You just need one on each, and then we're going to hook power out on our drop box into the input here, and then the output on each of these is going to filter through into our buffer boxes. Now what's going to happen is anything that goes into our drop box is going to get split amongst our buffer boxes. You can just use one if you've got a box for every other type of resources, and the buffer box will collect anything that won't fit in there. But what you're going to find is if you've only got one box for every type of resource, they're going to stack up very, very quickly. Especially clothing, I find, and guns. You're just going to run out of space. It's going to backfill into your buffer box, and then the system's going to break. So it's always a good idea to have multiple buffer boxes so that it can collect anything that's overflowing and anything that hasn't got a place to be sorted. But as I say, it will be split amongst the buffer boxes. It's not going to be one type of resource in each. So just something to bear in mind. Now we want to get ourselves some power over here, so let me just do that very fast. I have set up a battery over here. Haven't set up power out yet. I'll just do that. So another tip is if you take power, or if you take a wire and you start doing something like this and you don't complete it, you can change what you're doing. So you can place things, and you can continue with your wire. But if you move that wire out of your hotbar and then back in, you have to start again. So basically, always keep your wire tool or your pipe in your hotbar if you're routing something, and then you don't have to continue. You don't have to keep, basically just keep in your hotbar. Again, not very neat, but just trying to explain it as fast as I can without taking up too much of your time. So power into here. Now the drop box we want to take everything from the drop box and we want to push it through into our buffer box system. So if I'm not going to be using electric furnaces anymore, we jump those in there, they're going to be taken and they're going to move into a buffer box system. So again, do all that. You're going to deposit everything in there. You're going to find this is all getting split amongst the buffer box system, right? Now, we can take another conveyor. We're going to take multiple conveyors actually, and what we're going to do is we now want to get a splitter system. This is industrial splitter, not a splitter, and we're going to want to take that. We are going to be using a few of them, but first of all, let's say we've got sulfur, ore, wood, and charcoal, and we now got 4 boxes, but our splitter only gives us 3. So we're going to take the industrial in from that, and we're going to take it from the industrial out of our last buffer box. Now that will take from all the buffer boxes because they are linked in series. Okay, so we're going to want another industrial splitter. Just going to take that and just put it here. Again, you can make this as neat, as tidy as you want, but one of the outputs is going to have to feed into the splitter there. So now we've got 5 outputs. We've got 3 on here, 2 on there. So let's take the output here. We'll push that into the conveyor here. And basically each one of these outputs is going to want a conveyor. So this one is our wood. So any wood we want to push into there. Then we're going to want to take this one here, and this can be our charcoal. And then we've got sulfur and ore. So do that, and this one is actually going to be for cooked sulfur, because ore sulfur wants to go into an ore box. You can place these here if you want. You can place them on the ceilings, on the walls, on the floor, whatever. These can be placed anywhere. So again, just do this, not making it neat, and that's going to be ore. So we got sulfur ore, got metal, like that. And then you want power to this, so let's grab ourselves one of those. Just take the power out from this. To there, we got 4, so we want to branch out 4, power in, pass through, power in, pass through, power in, and there. So now, if I turn these on, I don't think I managed to hick that one. It's weird. It's on the turn off, power in, there, turn that on. So that's on, that's on, that's on, that's on. So now, I did have some more in our buffer boxes, so those should be feeding through into here. Perfect. I haven't put anything else in there. Oh, there's a bit of wood, yeah. Charcoal, so let's just grab some charcoal. F1. So stack of 1,000 there. Drop that in there. And it's already going into our buffer boxes, and then that will feed through into our charcoal box. So once you end up with a compound, you're probably not going to want to enter your building all the time. So you can just repeat the process, and you'll end up turning your original drop box into an extra buffer box. So again, just whack a conveyor on there. and then you power it. So now I've got a power out on that, but let's put the power out there. And that's just an easy way of rerouting a system without having to travel too far, because you could just right click to pick up from where you left off. So now if I put sulfur out here, cook sulfur that is, I get 1000, put that in there, that'll start taking it. That moves it from there, into here, and eventually into there. And you can repeat that with anything. So if I was to I don't think I've set these up very well. Put the boxes in an awkward position there. I think it's actually because I've put them in, rotated them too wrong. If you don't know, that's the crashing satellite. Never seen it land like that before. But you get radiation, and it's on fire at the moment, but what you can do is you can actually get water. So if I go water gun, hopefully it's giving me water. Press R to charge that up. You can actually put out fire with a water gun. Or if I get a bucket of water, or a jug maybe. Definitely can do this, I'm just not sure how much it takes. But ultimately with this, just since it's here, you can mine on these once the fire's gone. You can actually, so it's too hot to harvest, but you can get solar panels, you can get HQM, you get various things, and obviously you can loot the boxes on the side. Anyway. Never seen that land directly in front of me before, so there we go. As I was saying, I think I put these in the wrong way round. So basically when you put something down, you can see the side that's the front. So in this case, our side is that part there where there's a little rectangle. So if I press R, it goes to the left, behind, now it's on the right. So if I put that in here, you can now add that there, but because I put this the wrong way around, I couldn't add it. So you put that on the side, and yeah, now you can put ammo into there, same as here. If you want, we've got one more industrial output, but if you want to extend it, you just get another splitter, add that here, output in. Now we got 3. Still not going to be enough, so you'd need another one for all this. I normally use 4 med boxes. I'll put bandages in one, syringes in another, medical boxes in another, and walls in another. And then you got your ammo, your guns, your armor, your clothes, all in one place alongside your medication. I am just going to run over here again very fast. Because why not? Because it's still on fire. You take an awful lot of rads from here, by the way, so even in a radiation suit, rad suit, you'll still take rads. But yeah, so as I say, this is how you do an auto sorting system. Now, one other thing you can do is you can turn any box into a drop box system. So if you get another conveyor, it's going to be very costly on electricity outputs, But just to give you an example, let's do it with our wood. So we take the output on our wood and we filter that into here, and then we're going to turn this into wood again, and then we put exclude listed items, and you filter that back into the drop box or the buffer box, and it's always good to do that with an additional adapter. So if I power that, we change that to 5, take the pass through from here, turn that on. Wood, if I put a water gun in there, it'll take it out from there, it'll put it into our buffer box, and because that's got nowhere to go, it won't do anything. But if I take this 100 here and put that into our wood, because it's an excluded item, it's going to take it, it's going to push it back through there. Oh, and I just turned that off, and then it's going to start putting it back in here. So that was probably a bad one to use as an example because there's loads of that in there. But if I put the sulfur ore in the wrong box, it's going to go back into the buffer system and find the right box for it. So you can do that by using 2 conveyors per box, but as I say, each one needs 1 power, and you're just going to eat a lot of power. So you're going to need to have a lot of batteries for this to work, but it's good to know. You can just repeat the process on that. So another tip here is, given we have electric furnaces set up, what we can do is we want to take our output from our ore, we'll run it through here. You can actually put this through windows. The best way to jump through a window is to sprint jump and crouch mid-air, rather than attempting to keep crouch jumping near it. If you sprint and crouch mid-air, that's the best way to get through a window. Always takes a bit of practice, but you can branch this off. We can add a storage adapter onto here and another conveyor. So let's add that there. Conveyor, pipe, put that through to there. Should have some power somewhere. So, oh, that's because it's from there. So actually, let's just, for the time being, just do that. Then just do this very fast. So what we can do, turn that on, because it's coming from our ore box, though we know that's basically all we're going to get. We can specify it to be correct. So we want ore, it's metal, and it's sulfur, and then that's going to feed into here, and it's going to burn until that finishes. There's obviously a lot of ore in there, so it's not going to go off for a while, but just so you can see, you can do it that way. You don't actually need to have this box. If you've set it up, you could just have that box there filtering straight into this system, and then the output I would normally have coming from, so instead of going into here, I would then put in a splitter, and I'd say I want one of my outputs to come across into a metal box, like so, and then I'll take, you do need a conveyor on that, otherwise I'm going to be getting sulfur as well. So I want that, like that, and then that's going to specify that we only want fragments, or high quality metal. And again, just take some power from here and turn that on. And then the sulfur we can repeat with another output and put it straight into our sulfur box, which is over there for the time being. So, with that said, we now have metal coming near our TC. So, depending on what your upkeep is, you're going to probably not have enough space in your TC to accommodate the upkeep without logging on. So, we want an adapter which you can attach to your TC, and then we're going to use a combiner, industrial combiner that is, and we'll put that here, and that's got 3 inputs. So we're going to take our industrial output, put that into there. We're going to take it from our stone box as well, put that into there, and then we're going to put a conveyor, let's put it there for the time being, and filter that into our TC. And on here we can specify how much wood we want. I obviously haven't plumbed in the wood because that's in the other room, but you get the point. You could specify how many metal fragments you want, and how much high quality metal, and how much stone. So you only need 3 inputs on this, so one industrial combiner is perfect because you've got HQM and metal frags in the metal box, stone in the stone box, wood in the wood box, and that fills all 3 of those into one conveyor, which then plumbs your TC. So on here you can then obviously look at your upkeep time, and then you can just adjust this accordingly. And so I would normally have this set to a maximum of 1,000 wood, and then probably a maximum of 100 HQM, and then you change your stone and your metal frags dependent on whatever system and how much your upkeep is of your base. And then that will always keep your TC up to speed. And one good thing to do is also add a conveyor, another one, and we'll take that from that output of the TC. The reason for this is because when your teammates are fucking about with your TC and they're putting random things in there, we want to ensure that this just remains exactly how we set it up for the optimum amount of upkeep. And then you'd filter this back through into your buffer boxes, which are on the other side of the wall, so I'm not going to do it, but you can then see that your TC will always remain with the same amount of upkeep no matter what. And a really good thing to know is you can put a window on here. Now this is just a strengthened glass window. I can just erase this very fast so you can see the TC through it, but ultimately this is a DLC pack and you can paint it, but the pipes will still work with a window. It's a really good way of keeping your TC upkeep perfect whilst also simultaneously keeping your TC protected. So you don't have to keep taking the glass on and off, you can just plumb it like this and you'll be good. You can also put these on the inside of the glass, they don't have to be on the outside. I just did this very quickly for you. And on the topic of pipes working, you can also ensure pipes work with doors closed as well. So yeah, anything that's got some sort of pedestrian access, so a window, a door, pipes can run through it even if it's closed or sealed like that. Really useful. Just trying to think if there's anything else which I can run by you. So this you've probably set up, you can see I've set it up in a really what may be considered weird manner. So ultimately I've put a floor frame in there. It's a triangular floor frame, and the reason I've done that is because it's known as a fuck you TC, and floor frames, wall frames don't have soft sides to them. So if someone ends up destroying your TC, the loot crate falls to the floor, and now they have to destroy that floor frame before they can be able to loot it. So because it hasn't got a soft side, they can't sit there after sealing with a jackhammer, or they could. It's just going to take them a fucking long time. So they're going to have to explode it, and it's just a waste of their rockets if they want to loot the TC. So with that said, it's also worth noting you have to build the floor frame before the TC, else you're not going to be able to place a TC. I have got some additional tips and tricks if we just come around here. Just going to run through these rather quick. So, if you didn't know, basic blueprint fragments can be upgraded into advanced blueprint fragments. So once you have 20 in a stack, you can click upgrade, you get an advanced BP frag. Most people will buy them, and it's not worth doing that, but if you're on a 2-time server or a modded server, you might be in excess of your basic blueprint frags, and it's just a good tip. So, Honeycomb. You can obviously click extract, you can get beehive nucleuses, you can put those into beehives to produce honeycomb, which can then produce honey. Great source of food, also great for removing radiation. But if you've got enough beehive nucleuses, there's no need for more. So a really good thing you can do here, it's also quicker than clicking it, is you can whack these into electric furnaces. So if we put honeycomb on here and honey on here, we put that in there. Just gonna take out all this, and you'll see in a second that the honeycomb is going to feed into our electric furnaces, and it's going to cook itself super quickly. There you go. We're going to get honey back, and there won't be any beehive nucleuses whatsoever. I'm sure I put a jar of honey on there. It's because I've piped this afterwards. Hang on, let me just undo that. Because I was showing you. We want the input of that to be there. Sorry about that. So the honey comes out, but you won't get any beehive nucleuses. It's just a very, very, very quick way of cooking honeycomb into honey, and yeah, it's just you don't get the beehive nucleuses at all. I keep repeating myself, but I'm sure you understand. So put that back in there. So tip number 2, if we run back over here, we obviously had our loot room set up here, which is a nice way of doing things, but if you want to be more efficient, you can put shelves down there, and then theoretically you can put horizontal barrels on the top here, and then let me just put that there to make this easy, and then place another one in there. So you can do 3 horizontals on the top, but you can also just use vertical barrels and you don't need the horizontals at all. But you can't do the horizontals on the bottom just due to the way that these shelf legs are. So you can put 3 horizontal barrels, vertical barrels in there. You can also do 3 vertical ones on the top. And then what you can do is, I need to get a building plan. So wall frame in there, hammer, let's just upgrade that, and then we'll put garage door, and then you can press R to reverse that so that you don't see as much of the barrels or none at all. I have actually placed some of these barrels slightly wrong, so let me just try and redo that. So don't hold shift on this because you won't get it right where you want to go. So you want to get this as far back as you can, then hopefully that works. There you go, so you can't see the barrel anymore. Press R to reverse, but you want the roller on the outside so there's increased space on the inside, and then you won't be able to loop the barrels through the garage door. So the reason I haven't put it at the back of this square is because you might want to walk through here. Can't place that because I've just built the triangles there, but ultimately this is just a really efficient way of doing loot storage. And you can add adapters onto these. So you can put them on the sides, you can put 2 on each, you can place them on these ones, put them through, so you can add all your adapters onto your loot barrels, and you can have this as an auto sorting system as well. So that's that. Then this is here to remind me. So let's go back to a box that's got lots of stuff inside it. Let's say this one here, okay? What we can do is, I just give myself some power here. Take 1 power per storage adapter and just plug that into here. It's actually a bad idea to show this on one that's got 2, because what you'll find is one of these, when it's normally the one that was placed first, takes default, but then on a relog you'll find the default changes. But what I've done, having powered a storage adapter, this cog in the top right lights up, and that now allows you to add sorting settings. So you can enable it up here: alphabetical, count, condition, category, custom. You can take screenshots to show what you want, reverse it, stack it. So on ammo, this is actually really useful. You stack that. Again, on ore boxes, really useful. You turn it on, you apply changes, and then it sorts your box for you. So if I then take, I don't know, put a barrel in there, or a hammer, all this in there, it sorts it all automatically, and then we can change it to be on condition. You can change it to be on category, whatever you like. I normally do alphabetical, stack it, and then if I move a bandage out of that, it'll stack it back again. Just really useful to know. But yeah, that's that. So let me grab this, and then right, seismic sensors. So this you want to put in the middle of your base. You only need 2 power coming to it. So if I take that, put it there, get the wire tool, I just make a branch. I think there should be one in here. Perfect. So take this, branch off 2, put that into the power in. So what will happen, essentially this goes off when it senses explosions. If I just make an assault rifle with some 5.56 explosion ammo, I'll get, in fact I'll just get a bit of all of this, and some F1s, some C4, some rockets, and I'll demonstrate this. But ultimately you want to take the power out, put it into the power in of a smart alarm. You can then hold down E and you can pair it with your Rust Plus app. But ultimately what's going to happen is, if I change this to normal 5.56, gunshots don't trigger it. HV doesn't trigger it. Incendiary, shoot this not near anything, doesn't trigger it. As an FYI, you can configure this on range, so this is set to 30 meters. I believe 1 square foundation is considered a 3 by 3 meter range, so it's essentially 10 foundations is what 30 meters is. Now, that's normally plenty, just depends how close your neighbours are, how big your compound is, but let's just say, let's set this to 10 for now, right? So, explosive ammunition does trigger this. So, you see, that sent an alarm to my Rust Plus app if I had it enabled or paired. C4, again, that'll trigger this, because it's within, should be within 10 meters. In fact, let's just set it to 30. So that gets set off. Grenades. Get set off. Rockets get set off as well. Satchels get set off. Propane bombs get set off. I don't need a demonstrator at all. Get set off. But basically, you'll get a notification whenever that goes off. Now, you could do various systems with a seismic sensor. You could have that trigger a sprinkler system if you're in the snow to ensure that your raiders are made very, very wet and they get cold and they'll freeze to death. You could do whatever you like. It's really good. Play around, enjoy. Now, a smart switch is different. You can use this to trigger various things from your Rust Plus app. Some people do it with garage doors so they can open up turrets on people. Trap bases use this quite a lot, but a good thing to use this on is SAM turrets. Now, SAM turrets don't actually have they have a peacekeeper mode, defender mode it's called, or target all. Now, what you don't want to do is target yourself, because you don't really want this on defender mode. You want it on target all, and you don't want it targeting yourself. So what you would do is you would run this through the smart switch so that you can control it via Rust Plus app on your phone, so that the SAM turret is always running when you're home, and then when you're about to hop in your minicopter, you can just turn them off. So power in on that, just grab power here. So you can turn it on, SAM turret's active, turn it off manually, SAM turret's not active. But I will just pair this very fast. I haven't even got this server paired, so if I enable that, and then it should have a notification. Yep, pair device. Smart alarm, pair device, and then we also need to pair our smart switch. So we go up to here, pair, should get a notification through. In a second. It's being very slow. Just reboot the app. Yeah, here we go. Smart switch paired. So, if I then go into my Rust Plus, smart switch, turn it on, turn it off, and basically your SAM turret can be active and non-active at the click of a button on your phone, and it just makes life so easy, so you can always have your SAMs active when you're around or when you're not flying. So, I think this is the last one, and this, I'm not going to hook it all up, but you can actually automate your furnaces, external, large, and your oil refinery. Now this always only gets placed on one side of it, so it's always the side when you're looking at it and the handle, or whatever you want to call that, is on the right hand side. That's the place where your adapter will get attached to. You can't place it anywhere else, so just bear that in mind when you're placing down your oil refinery. You can place these on each side of your large furnace, and you can hook this up to the conveyors and you can feed it properly. And again, I would hook this up similarly to your small furnaces, so I'd have an igniter outside with the timer which can ignite them. You can also hook it up with a sprinkler system to put them out as well. But yeah, the world is your oyster, and I hope you've learned something today. And yeah, if you did, like, subscribe, and enjoy.